Calaroga Shark Media.
Hello and welcome to Palace Intrigue. I am your host, Mark Francis. Royal author Tom Quinn told The Mirror, "I've spoken to a close friend of Charles who believes that even if the king wanted to accept Harry's offer, which he does not, he is going to do it because William is appalled at the idea. To say that Harry and William are not on speaking terms is to underestimate the difficulty. Daggers drawn would be a better description. William has advised his father not to allow Harry back, partly because he finds his brother so difficult, but mainly because Harry has broken the royal code of silence so often in the past. Royal troublemakers, and that's how Harry is seen by William, and to some extent also by Charles, have traditionally been kept at arm's length by the family. Look at Edward VIII after the abdication. It was made clear to him that he was not welcome in England because he might steal George VI's thunder. William, who is quiet and more fixed on his destiny and on adopting the never explain, never complain rule of his grandmother, does not want a glamorous, unstable brother around even temporarily, a brother who might at any time fly off the handle and write spare too. Charles is also aware that as future king, William is at the heart of the succession planning that is taking place right now. Officials had assumed Charles would remain healthy at least into his mid-80s before succession planning would need to begin, but in fact it has now begun, and indicates perhaps that Charles' cancer is more dangerous than we have been led to believe. Succession planning is highly secret and no one trusts Harry to be part of it for the simple reason that he feels in any way slighted or not given what he feels he deserves. He will run straight to the media. The meticulous planning surrounding the eventual passing of King Charles is encapsulated in Operation Menai Bridge, a moniker inspired by a notable suspension bridge in Wales. This operation, revealing the extent of the forethought given to royal contingencies, was subtly hinted at in an episode of The Crown which depicted a close call Charles had with an avalanche. During this episode, the Queen's secretary, discussing the prince's safety, remarks, "We have contingency plans in place for all members of the royal family. Menai Bridge is no exception. It's the code name for the death of the Prince of Wales." Such preparations have been a long-standing part of royal protocol. The period of planning and mourning that follows a monarch's death, as witnessed during the days post Queen Elizabeth II's passing, offers a glimpse into what might be expected when the time comes for Operation Menai Bridge to be enacted. Simon Morgan, a former Royal Protection officer, indicated that planning for Charles' eventual funeral began almost immediately after his ascension. "Unfortunately, as of tomorrow morning, planning for Operation Menai Bridge will start in earnest," Morgan explained, acknowledging the inevitability of such events given the king's age and the responsibilities that come with his position. The specifics of Operation Menai Bridge remain confidential, but it's anticipated to mirror Operation London Bridge, the code name for Queen Elizabeth II's passing. This means that upon Charles' death, a sequence of notifications will commence, starting with his family and the Prime Minister, followed by Commonwealth nations and the heads of state, and finally the general public. A poignant aspect of royal protocol was highlighted when Queen Elizabeth II died. King Charles insisted that all family members be informed before any public announcement, showcasing his concern as both a monarch and a father. The death of King Charles will prompt immediate changes, including the pinning of an official notice at Buckingham Palace's gates and the lowering of flags to half-mast. Prince William will assume the role of king instantaneously, although his coronation may not occur until several months later. Following the passing of King Charles, it is anticipated that his funeral will be conducted 9 days later, a slightly shorter period compared to the Queen's funeral, which occurred 11 days after her death. Subsequently, King Charles will be interred at the Royal Vault located within the King George VI Memorial Chapel at Windsor Castle, ensuring his final resting place is among those of his royal predecessors. Christopher Wilson writes in the Daily Mail, "The king was ill, very ill. Doctors worried for his future while keeping secret from the public the gravity of his condition. His immediate family closed ranks to guard his privacy, but in the wider royal circle, they were already plotting to ditch the age-old order of succession and put a usurper on the throne. The king in question was not Charles, but his grandfather, King George VI. At Buckingham Palace, courtiers were in a tailspin. It's hard to imagine now, but they were terrified of the influence Prince Philip had over Princess Elizabeth, his wife of the past 2 years. Not only was Philip cordially disliked by the palace old guard, their suspicion and mistrust extended to his uncle, Lord Mountbatten. Mountbatten, a wily old schemer, was loath for having planted his pushy nephew in the princess's way, for none of the stiff-collar brigade could bring themselves to believe she could actually have fallen in love with the handsome sailor. Elizabeth, they feared, would become Lord Mountbatten's poodle. At 23, she was far too young and impressionable to take on the challenge of being head of state. Mountbatten must be kept away from the levers of power. And so the talk grew rapidly of putting a regent on the throne if King George VI lingered on but was no longer capable of fulfilling his constitutional role. If a regent were suddenly needed, who were they going to call? Old Queen Mary, widow of King George V and the ailing king's mother, was past her 80th year. She looked a remote and anachronistic figure. There was the Duke of Gloucester, another brother of George VI and the Duke, but he was considered a joke figure by courtiers and politicians and the royal family itself. His name was Harry. There were no other close claimants to the throne. All the Duke of Windsor had to do was play his cards right, whispered to courtesy, and the throne could be his, at least until young Elizabeth had matured. Palace Intrigue will be right back. Royal expert Jenny Bond told OK Magazine, "It's clear that for the next 15 years or so, depending on when Prince George decides to take up full-time royal duties, the working royals are going to become extremely thin on the ground. But I'm doubtful that Lady Louise would ever become a full-time working royal, partly because I'm not sure she would want to, and also because the King and William know only too well that the monarchy has to be increasingly accountable to the taxpayer. The most common complaint about the royal family is that they cost too much. Extra working royals would mean extra staff, extra administration, extra security, extra cost. And that is not the direction that either the King or William want to take. Also, Louise is only 20. She is enjoying university life, and she undoubtedly casts an eye on her cousin, Zara Tyndall, and sees the independence and freedom and fun she has in her life as a much-loved member of the royal family, but not a working royal. I would bet that Louise will follow a similar course." In a recent study, Prince William was named the world's second top royal for 2023, following closely behind Prince Abdul Mateen of Brunei, who took the top spot. This ranking was the result of a comprehensive analysis conducted by the team at Slingo, which evaluated 6 key factors: gender, country, net worth, Google search volume, Google searches for the most attractive royal, and an overall royalty score out of 10. Prince Abdul Mateen, the 10th child of Brunei's Sultan Hassan al Bolkiah, emerged as the leading royal figure globally, with an impressive score of 8.95 out of 10 across all categories. His substantial net worth of approximately £3.9 billion also secures his position among the top 10 wealthiest royals. And there you have it. If you'd like to email us, our address is thepalaceintrigue@gmail.com. Please follow us on Spotify, Apple, or your app of choice. I'm Mark Francis. My thanks to John McDermott. This is Palace Intrigue and good times.